Another great episode of Beating Cancer Today. You have got to love this environment. Oh my God, the weather is beautiful. It's just starting to really get chilly here in South Florida, where we're located at. And I'm kind of kidding about that because for most of you guys around the globe, it's a lot colder. But here in Florida, we're starting to really get chilly because it's actually below 75 degrees. So it's starting to get pretty chilly here. But thanks for tuning in, and we're excited that this platform is growing, and this message seems to be getting out to more and more people. The audience is really getting bigger, and I get feedback every day, positive feedback that there's good trends and positive test results and things of that nature from people all over the globe that are taking this cancer cocktail that we're talking about here. So thank you guys so much for making this happen. And we're starting to save some people's lives. And I'm getting excited about it. And you should too, because if you're looking for answers, I think that we're finding them. We're currently in the process of building up content on Rumble and also Patreon.com. In the event that we start getting censored and things of that nature, I think that it's a good idea to broaden our audience base a little bit. So keep an eye out for those two platforms in the event that things start getting censored. But our Facebook page is where you could find most of the information that we refer to during these episodes, and also the scientific evidence that's cited to support the information that I discussed during each episode. So you can find us on just about every social media platform, but those locations specifically is where you can find the cited data. And also, I know those other Rumble and Patreon, they do pretty well without censoring information. But as far as the documentation and the literature goes, right here on this Facebook group page, Beating Cancer Today. So please, folks, continue to share this information and the videos with your friends. Ask those friends to share it with their friends so we could grow this audience and hopefully reach the person that needs to hear this the most. My all-time disclaimer is I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I have no medical or scientific training whatsoever. I'm just a United States Marine. And I was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer. And after 3 years of Western medicine, gold standard care, the gold standard of treatment at one of the top institutions with secondary and third and fourth opinions from top 5 institutions in the United States, I was sent home after they exhausted all their options, and they signed me up for hospice just to get me ready to die. They gave me a couple weeks, told me to collect my affairs. But I wasn't really trying to hear that. I wasn't ready for that. And you know what? They don't know me. So I actually found a solution in repurposed medicine. And that solution consisted of 5 ingredients that, after Western medicine had failed me, I found a remedy in this in these ingredients I got right on Amazon.com, right on the World Wide Web. And those ingredients are fenbendazole. It's 5 ingredients. Fenbendazole, which is an anti-parasitic medicine, and it's typically for animals, so beware. But it seems to be working pretty good on human cancer. Cimetidine, which is the active ingredient, Tagamet, which is a name brand that you might be familiar with, but the drug itself is called cimetidine. And AHCC, which is the third ingredient, active hexose correlated compound. Active hexose correlated compound. It's a collection of mushrooms, and that's great for your immune system. And it also supports the rest of the ingredients in this cocktail. Curcumin, which a lot of you with cancer are familiar with. Curcumin is an anti-inflammatory, and a lot of cancer patients use that. Also, annatto is the fifth ingredient. Annatto is the only good ingredient, the best ingredient that comes out of vitamin E. It's vitamin E is broken down into two parts. This is the part that complements the fenbendazole and does everything that we need it to do. So fenbendazole, cimetidine, AHCC, active hexose correlated compound, curcumin, and annatto, the 5 ingredients. All of these ingredients were selected based on logic and, not to forget, clinical evidence. So I didn't just willy-nilly pull these ingredients out of my hat, right? They were all based, the selection of the ingredients was based on scientific evidence, clinical evidence that was published by a major cancer institution within the United States. Okay. So I didn't just dream this stuff up. All right. I wasn't getting reckless or anything like that. Initially, actually, I didn't base my decision on science. I based my decision on logic. And that logic was based on Western medicine and the science that I found during my research. So that, coupled with a series of events that I can only describe as God's plan, had unfolded in my lap. And the fenbendazole was actually kind of thrust into my path. So I actually had a little nudge from the Almighty, and that led me to putting together some research that ended up with this cocktail, the 5 ingredient cocktail. And it really, what it did was it opened my eyes to what was already available. The information was right there. All I had to do was look for the right thing. So having this spiritual awakening, you could call it whatever you want, this series of events that occurred in my life that is really what kind of opened my eyes. It nudged me to do the research. It nudged me to, collect my thoughts and start looking at things from a different angle and not be so one-dimensional about it, right? So I wasn't trying to be reckless or commit suicide. I really kind of found it intriguing that the published clinical evidence that I was using to form my own opinion, the data that I was using, that from clinical science, from the trials and from things that were already proven out to be effective, the data that I was using was published by the same people that came from the system of doctors who were feeding me the chemotherapy poison that I was getting. So I was a little bit confused as to how, on one hand, these doctors are pumping me full of poison with chemotherapy, and on the other hand, the same system of doctors from the same education, from the same schools, from the same fraternities, whatever you want to call it, the same environment of people are also publishing these clinical trials and indicating that these other drugs work. And then the trials are being defunded and then they disappear. But I came across the paperwork. I came across the publications, and I came across all the evidence that was cited by the same doctors that are pumping me full of poison. So it was intriguing, to say the least. How did I get to this point? So in the US, it's worth mentioning is I can't, it always comes back to money. So in the US, in 2023, this year, before it ends, the estimate of new cancer patients just in the US for this year, which isn't over yet, is projected to be for the next couple weeks. Just under 2 million new cases of cancer and just over 600,000. Actually, it's like 610,000 cancer deaths. So just under 2 million new cases, but over 600,000 deaths. That's just to kind of break this down, right? So that's actually, if my math is right, that's approximately 4 new cases every single minute. 4 new cases of cancer every single minute. So if this recording here, if this broadcast is 30 minutes, then you're talking about 120 new cases of cancer. 120 new people were diagnosed during this broadcast. 120 more audience for this channel, right? So that's one death from an existing case every single minute. 4 new cases every minute. So this audience for this page, for this channel is growing. 4 new cases every single minute. And then one person dies every single minute. Now that's just in the US. So curing a disease, I just don't understand this. So curing a disease involves eliminating it from the body, right? I mean, I think that we could all agree on that, that it results in the absence of the disease. That's curing it. It's when it is eliminated from the body. And all of the symptoms go with it. It actually means eradicating it from the cause or the underlining, factor, whatever is contributing to it, you eradicate that from whatever's responsible for it, for the illness. On the other hand, when you just control it and you don't cure it, you're just controlling it, that's complicated. You're managing symptoms, you're slowing the progression, preventing complications without necessarily eliminating the disease entirely from the body. So it's like a Band-Aid, and the Band-Aid falls off every once in a while. So you're constantly having to revive it, right? That's a delicate process. When you're not curing something and you're just controlling it, that's way more difficult than a cure because you're controlling it. It's a very delicate balance, right? You're controlling it. You're trying to keep a C student. You don't want it to fail. You don't want it to excel. You just want a C student there, just to control it. So that is a delicate balance. It might involve treatments that keep the disease in check. And if that sounds familiar to you guys, that's what chemotherapy does. Allowing it to lead, it allows you to lead a relatively normal life despite having cancer, but it's peaks and valleys. You see, what happens is chemotherapy works for a minute because it kills everything. And then your cancer adapts to the medicine and it starts coming back. But then the doctors change the Western medicine and it hits it again. And when it hits it this time, you think you got it. But then the cancer adapts again. And when it adapts again, they start running out of medicine to change. That's why there's peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. You get better, they change the medicine. You get worse, they change the medicine. So it's peaks and valleys. And that is what contributes to the false sense of security or whatever. So when you're controlling a disease, there has to be peaks and valleys so you could find the C student, right? So that you can find the middle. All right. So there's got to be peaks and valleys. So the treatments, it allows you to function somewhat normally, but it doesn't cure anything. And it just is a continuous effort of finding the middle, the happy medium, where you can just function and lead a normal life, or somewhat of a normal life despite having cancer. Why do you want to do that? Who wants to live a normal life with some exception, of course, being poisoned every once in a while with chemotherapy and changing of drugs and this and that. There's no normal life. You either have cancer or you don't have cancer. So, I mean, it's kind of there can be perceptions. I mean, if you're looking to just control the disease instead of cure the disease, it makes you wonder why somebody's going through 10 times more the trouble to balance something instead of just cure something, right? So that's what is happening here. There can be perceptions or concerns, maybe, about treatments aimed at controlling instead of curing a disease for financial reasons, maybe, because the more you control, the pot gets bigger. You're contributing money, contributing money, contributing money, and the pot is growing, growing, growing. So now the interest in this pot becomes more prevalent. Some might argue that ongoing treatment for a controlled condition instead of curing the issue, that's more financially lucrative for a pharmaceutical company or healthcare providers, for them to compare that controlling the disease versus a one-time cure. That certainly would be more financially beneficial. The definition of insanity, though, often attributed to Albert Einstein, I think his name is. It's doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. That expression highlights the idea of repeating the same actions and expecting a different outcome. It's just an irrational thing. It's irrational to think that. But if the theory is accurate, and it is insane to continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result when person after person after person after patient after patient after patient, it's failed them all. If you're expecting a different result for some crazy reason of the same treatment, if the theory's accurate, and I just got to ask this one question, why the same gold standard of care? Why the same gold standard of care as a blanket treatment across the board of many, many cancers? And none of them are curing the disease. So why have so many smart, well-trained doctors stood by as American healthcare descended into a profound state of dysfunction? I don't. I mean, it's like the $1 million question, or billion or $1 trillion question. I think that the answer lies in the gradual commercial takeover of the medical knowledge that the doctors are trained to trust. I don't think these doctors are villains. I think that They're just trained to trust a certain protocol, and that's it. That is gospel. And anything else is just stinking thinking. If you control the information, you control everything. You control the information, you control everything. Hell, that's why the censorship of social media and that's why everything became so powerful, since the beginning of the pandemic. You control the information and you have the power of everything. If the government and big pharma were able to censor any opposing views, they would be able to steer people's beliefs based on biased information. It would literally lead society to be herded like sheep. Sheeple. We'd all be sheeple at that point, right? In 1981, Ronald Reagan passes a law that, and now don't, I like Ronald Reagan, whatever. I'm not a political person or whatever. I mean, there's cool and not cool, a lot of the government and politics seem to fall on that not cool side. But I mean, that's not what this channel's about. But regardless of how you feel about Ronald Reagan, whether you like him or dislike him or whatever, he did pass law that allowed nonprofit institutions and all of their researchers, their employees, to benefit financially from the discoveries that they made while conducting federally funded research. So you and I pay for the research. They find something that might work. They financially benefit from that. They get, perks. And so there's something a little bit wrong with that, I think. Folks, if you start to follow the timeline from back in the early 1900s, you'll see the catapult of Big Pharma into the controlling position of Western medicine. Big Pharma literally controls Western medicine. Make no mistake about that. To the point where the government attempted to intervene in an effort to keep a level playing field for all companies, and also to keep the integrity throughout the process of discovery. You don't want biased information. Despite the governmental efforts of eliminating the monopoly of Big Pharma, despite all attempts to level the playing field, money always wins. That's it. Money always wins. And despite all of the efforts, each rule or restriction that was put into place, Big Pharma was able to circumvent it. The massive legal team of Big Pharma, they had overwhelmed the government even. And money always wins. Look at your politics. Look at the lobbyists. Look at every single president that has come into office, what their net worth was, and what their net worth was when they left office after getting paid $250,000 as a salary. They left office, some exponentially. Just, I think Bill Clinton came in being worth a couple $1,000,000, and he left being worth $271 billion. It was like some crazy, obvious corruption going on, right? So money always wins. If you look at lobbyists, if you look at Big Pharma, if you look at the government's attempt to stop Big Pharma, money always wins. Money and greed. That's why you all still have cancer. Money and greed. And so, getting back on point, each rule or restriction that the government put into place, the big pharma was able to circumvent it, find a loophole in it. Whatever the case was, the government eventually, the government just kept losing their efforts to level the playing field. And eventually, the government just became indirectly complicit in Big Pharma's journey to control the details. Because ranging from the accurate information to suppressing effective medicines, that could be monetized, or that couldn't be monetized, rather. I mean, that's what's really happening between government and Big Pharma. They are making every effort, censorship and otherwise, to control the information. They're trying to control all the information, and it doesn't matter if it's about cancer or politics or whatever. They're trying to control the information that you hear. They want to control the level of accuracy and provide a lot of confusion and distractions. And they're also going to control the information, and they're going to suppress the effective medicines that couldn't be monetized against cancer. Over time, the suspicions became blatantly evident, and seemingly the individual players in the government found opportunities to financially benefit from this quest that was controlled by Big Pharma. And before it was obvious, Big Pharma was given a streamlined approach at offering their solution as a rule of law. You see, when you're Big Pharma and you go up against a congressional body, that's a very big feat. But when the lobbyists start benefiting the individual players in Congress or whatever, Senate, when the lobbyists start dividing the congressional masses, they divide them with money, and they start giving incentives to individuals, which divide the congressional body that Big Pharma is trying to defeat. So when you divide, you conquer. They divided the mass, and they conquered the individuals. And they did that by money, incentives. And that's how they were ultimately able to get the mass, congressional mass, to jump on in and support their role in controlling the information. I honestly believe that the quest for a cure was legitimate at one point in time. But whenever greed and power and control is mixed with money, the potential of corruption is imminent. It's absolutely going to happen every time, all the time. So now the confidence that you had for the people that you thought were in your corner, helping you during your fight, during your battle, the people that you thought were in your corner, helping you fight during this whole battle, the confidence of those people, it's shaken. So what now? What do you do now? Well, I tell you what you do. This is what you do. You get excited about something, you get aggressive with your decisions. Start putting a little bit of energy into what you do. Get aggressive with your decisions and act like you want to win this battle. Pretend like you want to stay alive. Get some energy about you. Get pissed off at it. Whatever you need to do. Remember, motion creates emotion. This is a battle. And there's just two opponents or two parties in this battle. It's you against you. There's nobody coming to rescue you. There's nobody that's going to jump in to help. This is you against you. You got to get your head right and make a decision. This is a battle I'm going to win. There is nothing else. There are no other options. We're not, we put up a good fight. Shut up. You don't know me. Don't call this a comeback. I've never left. I'm not going away. And if you were here in search for answers, you came to the right place because you got to get excited about something. And if this isn't something to be excited about, listen, they've been looking for a cure for cancer forever. If this is not a reason to get excited, then I don't know. I don't know who you are. I don't know what the reason that you need is. But I've been told that the best poker players, they place their bets. And I'm not a gambler. Like I'm not I guess I am a gambler because I take a horse dewormer. So, so I guess I am a gambler, but I was put into that position. That wasn't a choice, so, but I have always been told that the best poker players, they place their bets based on the cards in their hand, not the money that's on the table. So if you think about everything that's at stake, well, it's hard to make a decision based on that. It tends to cause some hesitancy, but if you base the decision on the scientific evidence, those are the cards in your hand. Be confident in your research. Believe in this cocktail because it's going to save your life. In this case, money is symbolic to the gravity of the stakes of this battle. The cards in your hand, that's the disease you've been dealt with, and the information you have in your hands that is proven scientific evidence that cancer is extremely curable. And I get it. You have a different kind of cancer. You have a special kind of cancer. You have this kind of cancer, that kind of cancer. I don't care what kind of cancer you have. It is curable. Where there is life, there is hope. You're still alive. You're watching this video. So come on. Again, folks, the cancer cocktail that I take that's been proven to work for so many people, thousands of people. The ingredients of that cancer cocktail is fenbendazole, cimetidine, AHCC, active hexose correlated compound, curcumin, annatto, 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 fenbendazole, cimetidine, AHCC, curcumin, annatto. Know the cocktail ingredients because they're going to save your life. Walking through the Christmas holidays, I got to tell you, I'm about to, as soon as this episode goes live, we're actually packing up and we're going to do some traveling for just this Christmas season. And I just wanted to tell you, I'll be on the road next week. So there'll be some sort of update, some sort of episode Just not quite sure exactly what that episode is going to be because I'm going to be on the road. So, just like the Thanksgiving holiday, we're going to work on the fly. Stay tuned to our Facebook channel for updates for our group page. And walking through the Christmas holiday season, and into the new year, I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody who's watching this, everybody out there, that, Santa Claus is great. Love getting gifts. But you know what I love even more than the gifts from Santa Claus is the gift from God. And he gave us Jesus Christ, his son, and ultimately sacrificed his son so we could all be absolved of whatever horrible sins that we had in our past. So let this be a celebration of the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ, his sacrifice, dying on the cross to absolve me of all my horrible sins. That's the reason why I'm still here talking to you guys about cancer. Put all of your eggs in his basket and know that he's the only path into the kingdom of heaven. Make sure that you know that. I pray that you guys commit with vigilance and discipline to getting healthy. It's truly the best gratification to build back a better version of yourself and to influence others. Please remember the coffee bean reference and how the coffee bean influenced the environment that it was in. It turned that hot water into coffee instead of allowing the hot water to affect the coffee bean. Folks, we'll see you soon. Enjoy your holiday season and